Hello, my name is Anna Prince, and I'm the principal at Louisa East Elementary. Just a little bit about our school. We are in Lawrence County, and we are a very large school of about 590 students, grades second through fifth. I brought along with me some teachers today. I have Ms. Kingsmore, she teaches fourth grade ELA, and Mrs. Pack teaches social studies and on-demand writing for fifth grade. A little bit about our school. This is our second year with the ACT grant. Last year, we were very fortunate to get this grant also, and we focused on formative assessments. We saw a lot of success with our formative assessments. We had our DRT come in and really work with the teachers. I saw a lot of improvement through walkthrough data and student achievement. So we thought we would go ahead and apply for this grant again. And based on our data, we saw the need to personalize learning based on student data. Now, you'll probably hear a lot of the same things that you heard Ms. Bowen present on because we are in the same district and personalized learning is a push in our district. But we do have different takes on a lot of things or different initiatives going on in each school. Some of our levers that we have are the formative assessments, of course, from last year, STAR assessments that we're using. With STAR assessments, we are looking at the instructional plans for the students. Teachers have really had intensive training on those this year to make sure that they know how to utilize those, the feedback tools from them, instead of just giving a student a star score and telling them where that they fall in the NAPD range. We now know how to meet their needs based on what skills that they are missing. We also have student data binders and the virtual job shadowing going on in our schools. And our teacher is going to talk to you a little bit more about some of those things.
Okay, I'm just going to talk a little bit. Is this on? Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about how we use formative assessments and the data from formative assessments to drive our instruction. One thing that Ms. Prince mentioned is our resource teachers have been coming in a lot to our PLCs to teach us different Kagan structures. So far, we've learned, I believe, quiz trade, where students can have different cards around the room and work in a group to quiz each other over certain skills, and they get that feedback from each other as they do it. We've learned rally coach, where they work with a partner and go back and forth. And in that time, they have the opportunity to coach each other instead of just saying, you're right or you're wrong. They really can give each other tips on what they can do to help the other student. And a lot of the time with rally coach, I like to pair my kids up with struggling students and a student that's exceeding at a skill. So I'll take a formative assessment that they've just done in class and group them that way. That way I know this student's struggling with text structure, this one's doing really well at it. They're going to be able to help each other out, and the other student's not going to feel defeated. They're going to feel confident because the other student's giving them tips for that. I also use Moby Max Reading. They do a lot of informational passages on that because we know fourth graders need complex text. So I always tell my students 80 or better is what you need to aim for. If you don't get 80 or better, I'm going to reassign it. So every week during their stations, I get on and I see who hasn't received an 80 or better. I reassign that lesson, and then I take that specific strategy, whether it's text structure or main idea, and the students that are struggling with that, I pull them back to my small group, and that's their enrichment time or their intervention time to work on those skills that I see they're missing within those lessons that they complete. Another thing that I've done for formative assessment is a graffiti wall. We did one last week where I said the graffiti wall is name the text structure. Students just read a short passage. They had to identify the text structure and explain why that it was the text structure and provide proof for it. So I had the students write their name on the back of their Post-it and then stick it up on the wall. That way you can't walk by and say, oh, that's Abigail's or that's whoever's it is. They feel confident that they can just stick it up there. Nobody's going to judge them for missing it. And at the end of the day, I would go and pull it. And then the next day during my sparkle time, which is our intervention time, I would work with those students who struggled on that activity. And that would be my intervention time for the day. And one more thing we do is just a consensus map where you can get individual data and group data. So you have students answer a question individually first. That way you can see who is struggling on the individual side, and then have them work as a group. So maybe at that moment, whatever they're needing help with can be addressed by a peer rather than being addressed by the teacher. So it's a lot of kids helping kids and you seeing right then what the needs are of your students and pulling them back for intervention.
Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about
our data tracking system. For several years, we have used data boards where we track the whole group data. And sometimes that can be very deceiving as an individual child because if the data is good, then they're part of good data. So last year, I actually taught third grade and I implemented the data notebooks. Um, Probably not with as much fidelity as I should have, trying to figure it out. So I learned a lot, and I feel like my kids also learned a lot. So I took the thought of the whole group data from the data board. We started tracking their individual data on STAR, MAP, and any common assessment that they took. So in fifth grade now that I'm there, we have added a section to the data notebooks for reflection. So taking from what Ms. Kingsmore said with our formative assessments, it's been an opportunity for them to track. They can see the whole group data, how many were novice, apprentice, proficient, distinguished according to that assessment, but then their individual data. So at the bottom of that page, they have a place to reflect. And in those conversations that you have with those kids and you talk about why were you successful or how can we make improvements, I have had kids actually refer back to those formative assessments and those Kagan strategies that we've done. The fan and pick has been a big one with my fifth graders this year, if you're familiar with those. But they'll say, I need more time individual, or I've learned a lot from a group when I did fan and pick, or when we did that consensus map. You know, I misunderstood something, but another student clarified it for them. We've also implemented virtual job shadowing. It's a program that our kids have done, and they've taken a self-assessment of things that they're interested in. There's also a reflection part for that. So every 2 weeks we have East coaching time, where everyone achieves success together, and they have the capability in this program to research different types of jobs. Now, the very first time we ever did that, they all thought that they knew what they wanted to be when they grow up. Well, as fifth graders, they don't. So they've been able to reflect on that reflection part in that data notebook, the parts that they were surprised, the things that they want to learn more about, and the things that they even learned about themselves. So the biggest thing for me this year is adding the reflection part to the data tracking and making it more individual to push that, personalize their learning individually.
The model from this really is from the Jim Shipley continuous improvement plan, the continuous improvement cycle. So we are pushing our teachers to look at that PDSA process, and our teachers are at various stages of that. We are beginning to look at data as a whole group. That is something that actually we've done that forever. Now we're looking at more individually, and students are seeing where their piece is in that bigger graph and the whole chart, and they can see what they need to do by setting those goals and making our school more successful. Our goals for this, of course, is the student monitoring their own progress. We have more engaged learners, accelerated students, students who are transition ready, and lifelong learners. Do we have any questions?